Hi there, my name is Jan Kostajanis. I'm the person who created the Glen 20 project. After that project, millions of lives have been saved from the coronavirus, as I've stopped and have eased restrictions due to my actions. It's cold. So I was just watching some Curb Your Enthusiasm clips on YouTube, and then there's this one where Larry comes up with a great idea to keep coffee warm for his cafe. And so I thought, that's a good idea, Larry. Maybe I can do something similar. Now his project may have caused his cafe to burn down, but that's alright. Now you might be wondering, how am I supposed to create such a tremendous project? The answer is embedded programming. Embedded programming is just like making stuff at IKEA. Except you're reading the Swedish instructions, because the letters, while they look like they're in English, the words are definitely not. Also, the instructions are 600 pages long. So I'm going to be using the Atmega 328P chip, which is on the Arduino Uno. And you might be wondering, if I'm using the Arduino, why am I bothering doing all this low-level coding? Why can't I just use the Arduino IDE? And that question can be answered the same way how you can answer, why drive a manual car over an automatic? Oh, hey bro, I drive this manual transmission so I can really feel the car, bro. I can feel the clutch and feel the gears, and I just feel one with the car. It's just very good. Let's talk about how it works. So there are four main parts of this project. You got your temperature sensor, your LCD, your heater, and your pressure sensor. There's also some serial communication in the form of USART, but we'll talk about that later. The load cell or pressure sensor is used to identify whether a cup is present or not. When a force is present, an LED will then turn on. There's also another LED for the heater to show if that's on. The coaster is made out of sponge. Why sponge, you ask? Well, if you spill any tea, the sponge will just soak it right up so there's no mess. Wouldn't that make it more dangerous, because then it will cut the electricity with the water and blow up? Maybe. The temperature sensor senses the temperature, and the LCD displays what this temperature is. So yeah, that's how everything works. Or is it? So the temperature sensor is the LM335Z. Now I used to have the LM35, however, I broke it. Now the LM335 runs on an ADC pin, which means the analog to digital converter. So what that basically means is that it converts its analog input, like a sine wave, into a digital one with squares and stuff. Now setting up the ADC is actually quite simple. All you gotta do is just look at the database, look at all the pins you need to enable, disable all the ones you don't need, and there you go. Yeah, just use Google. Before we can read the temperature, we need to do some calculations, as we need to convert the voltage into actual temperature. So all we gotta do is put some equations into the computer, and then the computer's just like... and then we can read our temperature. It's as simple as that. Now the LCD is a bit more difficult, as you need to combine its own database sheet with the Atmega's database sheet, look at all the commands, and then you can do your stuff. But you know what? Since I'm feeling nice, I'll do a quick tutorial on how to do it. time to talk about the bane of my existence. But first, let's talk about capacitors. Capacitors are parallel conductive plates. Here's the formula you can work out to find the capacitance of a capacitor. Now, as you can see from the formula, if you decrease the distance of the parallel plates, the capacitance becomes higher. What this does, it allows for the rate of charge to be changed depending on whether the parallel plates are further away or closer. So this could be actually used for our pressure sensor. All I need to do is figure out the code and make it. I couldn't figure it out. So instead I used the resistor-based load cell is actually very easy to code. It runs quite similar to the temperature sensor in that all you need is an ADC and then it will run. Temperature sensor, LCD, heater, load cell. Long ago, all my parts were working to make my coaster work, but then everything changed when my heater started not working. Only the serial communication, my debugging tool, could bring balance to this, but when the world needed it most, it stopped working. A couple of days passed and I found some new functions for serial communication on a website called He Killed My Wire. And although these functions are pretty good, I've still got a lot to learn before I can make this coaster. But I believe my coaster will eventually work. Let's talk about the heater. The key thing to remember with the heater is that P is equal to VI and V is equal to IR. With these equations we can find that P is equal to V squared on R, and all we got to do, since V is equal to 5, we just need to find the resistance value and then we can find our power. So let's say 5 ohms. That means it would be 25 divided by 5, that's 5 watts. That's a lot of watts. Now you can't just go and find the 5 ohm resistor and just plug it in. First you've got to worry about the power ratings of the resistor. Now most average resistors are a quarter or a half watt resistors. So you have to take that into account, otherwise you're just going to burn out your resistor and explode your house. According to my calculations, if I have a quarter watt power rating resistor, I would need at least 20 100 ohm resistors in parallel to make a 5 ohm resistor. So here's my heater. As you can see, it's 20 100 ohm resistors in parallel. And this is what powers it. It's cut up a USB. Now the heater runs on a PWM signal. So initially it will start at 100% duty cycle, meaning that it will just always be on. And once it reaches a certain temperature, the duty cycle will be then half to 50. So here we have the serial monitor and it tells us things depending on what the temperature is. So if the temperature is over a threshold, which here is 30 degrees, we're going to get a nice message telling us to drink up. However, if it's below that temperature, we're going to get called a silly goose because our drink is now cold. However, in parentheses we have, unless you wanted your drink to be cold, because I haven't really thought that much ahead. Yeah. Alright, so here we have a hot cup of tea and a cold cup of tea, okay? Let's look at the temperatures here, okay? Let's look at this, right? So if we look at this cold cup of tea, we can see it's around about 22 degrees. Now let's look at our temperature sensor here. It's around 19.8 degrees, okay? That's pretty close, pretty close. It definitely knows it is cold, okay? Now let's move on to my hot cup of tea, okay? So let's measure this using the multimeter. Alright, we can safely say it's pretty hot. Here we are, okay? As you can see, it's still 19 degrees. Just gotta wait a bit. Just gotta wait. Now as you can see, the temperature sensor is actually heating up. It went from 19 to 21. So that's how you know it works.